Hi, everyone. Welcome to this month's episode of Take 10 with NextGen, where we bring you 10-minute interviews with leaders in the industry. Today, I'm joined by Ryan Vergel de Dios from the City of Corona to talk to us about their experience with NextGen's warehouse modules. Ryan, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
So I just wanted to start us off before we jump into some specific questions and have you tell us a little bit about your organization and your warehouse needs so our audience can get a better understanding of how you're using NextGen's warehouse modules.
Sure. So the city of Corona is located just outside of Orange County in Southern California. We're actually located on the western tip of Riverside County. I work for our City of Corona's Maintenance Services and Department of Water and Power, where our warehouse is centralized. Our city encompasses a large region with a lot of sidewalk, water line, sewer, reclaimed water infrastructure. So it's important that we have an accurate inventory of items so that staff can complete important services and work orders. Also, with infrastructure, you always have to be prepared for an emergency within a moment's notice. So we need to make sure that we have an appropriate amount of all inventory in stock at all times. The NextGen module really allows us to achieve this.
Yeah, wow, that sounds like a lot. So let's dive right in. A lot of clients have never tracked warehouse inventory, so it sounds like you guys have really become experts in this. Do you have any high-level recommendations for beginners that are just getting started?
Absolutely. I think it's really important to understand what is your purpose for tracking the inventory and let that sort of guide how you're going to implement a system like NextGen. It's important to know what your goals are and what sort of process changes need to happen to make those goals realized. Often, I think we kind of get wrapped up in that implementation that we lose sight of what we want from a system like NextGen. But with that said, I also think it's important to be receptive and welcoming to change and understand that as you learn more about your organization and how this system interacts with it, your processes and policies are also going to evolve accordingly.
Awesome. So the next question is a little bit more granular, getting into how you guys actually configured your warehouse inventory module to fit your needs. But we had a client question of what's the best way to set up the location and category structure within the warehouse inventory module. So just as a reminder to everybody, the location and category structure is similar to the asset inventory module where parts, you can store them, you can assign them a specific location and category. So how did you guys set this up for Corona?
So we follow an essential hierarchy scheme in our aisles, and I thought it would be a lot easier to illustrate this through a picture.
Okay.
So I have this right here, and I'll share my screen. All right, do you see that?
Yep.
Okay, so you can see on your screen, aisle 2 through 7 is pictured. You don't see aisle 3 because we label our end caps as the odd numbers, but you can see just looking at aisle 7 that our lowest level we label with the number 1 and the letter A. So as you start to move down the sections, you'll have, in this case, 7-2A to represent the second section of your 7th aisle and the first level. And then as we start going up higher into those levels, you'll have, for example, in the picture, 7-1B, and then 7-1C, 7-1D, and so on and so forth. That it's really a simple scheme, but it also allows us to know if we're sitting somewhere in the office from the warehouse and we need to find an item that, let's say, for example, is in 7-1C, we know that we're going to need some sort of equipment to reach that item, whether it be a ladder, a forklift. It kind of helps us be more prepared in advance for what to expect when we get to that item. And because our warehouse caters to several different people and departments, we try to reflect that within our category structure. For example, 99% of our Department of Water and Power items begin with the letters DWP to signify DWP, Department of Water and Power. We then categorize those items into what divisions are going to be using them primarily. So we'll have categories like infrastructure maintenance, water meters, and etc.
Awesome. I appreciated the visual on that.
Sure, I thought that would be a lot easier because it would be a little bit abstract without it.
Yeah. Um, so Corona uses or has used RFID, which I think some of our clients might be interested in hearing about. Can you explain what RFID is, just, in a very, like, just a very simple overview, and then also what have been the pros and cons of using that for you guys?
Sure. So RFID is an acronym for radio frequency identification. It manifests itself as a little rectangle, physical rectangle that you place on your items that's encoded with digital data that allows you to track the physical locations and inventory levels for a part via an RFID reader. It's a great feature because it allows us to give each part a unique individual ID that allows for these physical tracking capabilities. If there's a discrepancy in the inventory, you can compare the RFID tags to what you have on the shelf and in the system to try and further research into where that discrepancy is arising. It's also a little bit more advanced than barcoding. Barcoding requires you to be right next to that part and aim that scanner directly at the barcode. Whereas with RFID, I can be some 50, 100 feet away, depending on the
Oh, wow.
sensitivity of the reader, and still be able to pick up that tag. Of course, with all technology, though, there are some instances where it feels like it's more maintenance and more problems than it actually are benefits. For example, we've found that with a lot of our RFID tags that they don't work on all items. So we have a lot of liquid items, and we've been
Mm.
placing the RFID tags directly on, let's say, a bottle of liquid, and it won't pick that up. And we've
Oh,
also found that they don't stick on concrete items. So we've had to work around and kind of experience delays. But I think these are things that you don't really know them until you try them.
yeah.
As long as you can kind of navigate through and keep your eye on the end of the goal, then you're able to work through these types of things.
Yeah, I wouldn't have even thought of that. Um, So, what are some specific strategies? And I think you've talked about a few of them already, but anything we haven't talked about that Corona has implemented to maximize using NextGen to manage your warehouse? I know I've seen kind of like a really intense user guide that you guys created for yourselves to make sure that you're staying consistent with your processes. But anything like that that you do to kind of make sure you're maintaining the warehouse and training everyone appropriately and stuff?
Sure. The warehouse module offers a lot of different capabilities that we've more recently begun to explore and implement into our processes. We're very much a team that believes in process efficiency. We try to capitalize on these capabilities that NextGen offers to increase our efficiency. We recently begun this transitional process where we move all of our inventory replenishment request communications directly into NextGen and use the notification feature to keep all staff that's involved with that process informed. That really allows us to keep all relevant and applicable information in one single and concise area and not have to be researching into different folders where we may keep this information. It really just condenses it all down. We've also started using a little bit more simple features like the user defined fields to kind of
Hmm.
collect some data on our processes. For example, the beginning of our inventory replenishment request begins with our lead inventory control technician. He creates a purchase order and then sends it to our business supervisor for approval. And once she approves it, she will log the date that it was approved. And we're basically logging the date of every step that's completed so that in a year's time from now, once we have enough data, we can collect all this information and see how long it takes to administratively process the purchase order, collect data on the vendor information, how long it's taking them to process it, and even going as far as once we send this to our accounts payable team, what is the time frame that it takes from initial sending to when that vendor actually receives payment. Once we collect all this information, we can kind of take that and then start utilizing the inventory reorder screen, which allows us to create a minimum quantity of stock that we should keep and a maximum, and considers things like economic factors like the cost to keep that inventory in stock at the minimum level, at the maximum level. And I think ultimately what this does is help us be a better warehouse to better serve our customers that are using it or other departments.
So it sounds like with all the data that you're collecting, you're definitely using our reports as well, to then pull that data and analyze that.
Oh yeah,
Um,
the reports are definitely huge and really allow us to um, take all this information, but then summarize it into a more linear fashion where we can actually then do an analysis.
all right. Well, that's all the time that we have for today. Thank you, Ryan, for joining us. I know I definitely learned a lot. And thank you to our audience for taking 10 with NextGen. See you next month.